Harrison County Board of Education meeting for Tuesday, February 4th. This time, let's stand for pledge of allegiance. Mr. James, would you please be so kind?
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Okay. Our first order of business is the 2025 National FFA Week Proclamation. Yay. Proclamation here for South Harrison and for Bridgeport, and Ms. Smith will read the proclamation for you.
Whereas the National FFA Organization has designated February 15th through the 22nd, 2025 as FFA Week, and whereas FFA and agricultural education provide a strong foundation for the youth of America and the future of the food, fiber, and natural resources systems, and whereas FFA promotes premier leadership, personal growth, and career success among its members, and whereas the FFA motto, learning to do, doing to learn, earning to live, living to serve, gives direction of purpose to these students who take an active role in succeeding in agricultural education. And whereas FFA promotes citizenship, volunteerism, patriotism, and cooperation. And whereas members, advisors, state officers, alumni, sponsors, and staff of the Harrison County Association of FFA are to be commended for their dedication to developing leaders for the future of the agriculture industry in the state of West Virginia. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Harrison County Board of Education does hereby proclaim February 15th through the 22nd, 2025 as National FFA Week 2025. Passed by the Harrison County Board of Education, Clarksburg, West Virginia, this 4th day of February 2025.
You want to let,
Yeah.
we have Justin Arnold here from Bridgeport. And then we have John Lockhart. I know it's Lockhart from South Harrison. Do you two gentlemen want to come up? And then we'll introduce the kids that you have, and then you can talk about your programs. I'd like to hear about things that you.
Good, Mr. Arnold.
Mr. Arnold and Mr. Lockhart.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for having us here this evening and honoring our FFA members who are definitely dedicated to service in our county. I know South Harrison and Bridgeport, we've been doing a lot in the FFA realm, in the agricultural education realm, and I'm sure Mr. Lockhart would agree it's a pleasure to serve in this position year after year. From me, my perspective this year, it's been exciting to see the growth of our program from a membership side, from a student side. My classes, I've been seeing an all-time high in enrollment, and according to Mr. Edward, looking at the first round of PEP plans coming through, it looks like that's going to continue into next year. I'm really excited for that.
Well, I definitely thank you for recognizing FFA Week, and I want to thank Mr. Arnold for putting this together. This is a really nice tribute to what we do from the board, and I really appreciate all the support that we get from the finance office and from you, Mrs. Knight, Mr. Lopez. You know, I've been doing this for 12 years, and working with the school board is always a pleasure. You guys are super supportive of everything we do and our students, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. We're very fortunate in everything that we have. We have great facilities, and we just look forward to, you know, just continued success.
Would you please introduce your students that you have here with you?
So Emma, if you want to stand up, Emma Hitt's here. She is our chapter president.
They can come forward and take a picture.
And then we have KJ and Nathaniel Linger and Owen Baker. Also members of our officer team. And actually, those three boys are also two-time state champions this year in the nursery landscape competition. And Farm Bureau Quiz Bowl.
And with Bridgeport today, we have Gracie Burnett serving as our chapter president this year, St. Nevin serving as our chapter reporter this year, Anna Grahalis serving as our chapter vice president, and Kaden Cox serving as our chapter treasurer. Notably, Kaden is part of the state-winning ag sales team and will be traveling to national convention this coming fall.
Coaches, you need to get in there too.
Look, there's no room for both of them.
Bring a proclamation.
Sorry.
Yeah, there we go. It's good.
I've written all in favor, so now everything's.
Thank you all.
Front page.
Do my best.
All right. Thank you all very much. Okay, next we have, if you would like to stay, you're more than welcome, but you don't have to. To be a part of the process, but if you'd like to leave, feel free.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We understand.
Okay, brings us down to next special recognition presentation. Ms. Sarah Starkey, protocols for schools, community agencies dealing with court orders.
I have handouts, but am I able to approach? So, although I don't know if I can make enough copies actually. So, okay.
Oh, you're having at 572.
Okay, so the two pieces of paper that I handed out, the first is the Neola policy. And then the second is not something that's published on our website. It's a internal protocol that we utilize in our school system. So I will start out and talk about, there was a landmark case back late 70s, but the ruling was in 1982, Filer versus Doe. And what that was is the United States Supreme Court held that a state may not deny access to a basic public education to any child, whether present in the United States legally or otherwise. And what that means is all students have a right to be in school regardless of immigration documentation and status. And that requires us as a school system to provide all children equal access to public K-12 schools. And as a result of that ruling, school districts may not require student or parents to produce information related to immigration status. With that being said, the Harrison County Board of Education is committed to protecting students from individuals not associated with the school system, albeit we have to recognize that we have a responsibility to cooperate and coordinate with our law enforcement agencies and the Department of Human Services. With that being said, Neola, we adopted that policy in July of 24, and it's really titled Schools and Community Agencies. And what that denotes is what we do when law enforcement and the Department of Human Services enters our building. And so there's several steps that are outlined in that policy. The first is upon arrival at the school, law enforcement agency or the Department of Human Services should be directed to the principal or the principal's designee. That's the first step. If an agency requests permission to interrogate a student at school, the principal or his or her designee shall make reasonable effort to notify the student's parents, guardian, or custodian prior to the interrogation when appropriate. Might not always be appropriate, depending upon the situation, especially if a parent is identified as being abusive or neglectful to a student. But otherwise, we would need to notify the parent, guardian, or custodian. All attempts to notify parents, guardians, and custodians should be well documented. The fourth step that's outlined in that policy is whenever an agency is there to question a student in our building, the principal or his or her designee or representative shall be present throughout the proceedings unless prevented from doing so. An example would be if we were directed for that not to occur by law enforcement or the Department of Human Services, if our presence would compromise their investigation or the reason to be questioning or speaking with the student. The policy also denotes that students have a right under federal constitution and state constitution not to incriminate themselves about a crime when questioned on school grounds by an individual acting in the capacity of a law enforcement official. The sixth step that's outlined in that policy is that students are entitled to be informed of their rights against self-incrimination if they are in a law enforcement custodial setting. And really what that means is that they're not at liberty to terminate the interrogation or the interview and just leave. The next step that's outlined in that policy is that students do not have a constitutional right against self-incrimination when being questioned by school officials or the prevention resource officer at the school acting under the supervision of school officials who are investigating alleged non-criminal school-related misconduct. And finally, the last step of that policy that we follow is that when an agency such as Human Services or a law enforcement agency requests permission to remove a student from our building, the principal or his or her designee shall notify the superintendent unless prevented from doing so by a court order or law enforcement direction. We must also notify, if it's not going to jeopardize the safety and well-being of the student, notify the guardian as well. If Child Protective Services, for example, is not the agency at the school that is removing the student from the building, then we would also notify Department of Human Services as well. Of course, there are times when principals will need outside assistance in dealing with misconduct that rises to a criminal behavior. If police are called, the superintendent should be advised as soon as possible. Teachers, school personnel, counselors, nurses, coaches, volunteers, or other professionals within the school who suspect abuse and neglect shall also make mandatory reporter notifications immediately, but not more than 24 hours. And those are the steps that we follow with regards to Neola. And then Harrison County Schools takes that a step further, and we have an actual court order procedure. And so what that means is, what do we do if someone comes to our school and presents a court order? So if that's the situation, and someone comes to the school with a court order, they should be directed to an administrator immediately. The next step would be that if a court order is sent to a school without an adult present, it should be given directly to the administrator. And then the steps that the administrator will follow subsequent to receiving that court order, they will verify the validity of the court order with the school prevention resource officer. They will also notify the homeroom teacher of any pertinent information. They will notify the secretaries of any pertinent information. And they will also electronically update any contact changes or legal changes and information in NEVIS. Then there's steps that the homeroom teacher will follow. And that is, they will make note of any arrival, dismissal, and contact changes in her or her lesson plan book, other contact information resources as necessary. They will also include all necessary information on any substitute directions. And then secretaries also have a duty in this protocol, and that is to make note of any arrival, dismissal, and contact changes in a central location for personnel use and for the use of a substitute. And they are also in charge of manually updating the WEVAS forms in the main office with any changes, including initials and date. All court orders will be housed in a file cabinet beside the secretary's desk. Another question that has come up is, what if we want additional vetting of a court order? All court orders, or if an agency comes to our building that is requesting to remove students from our building, such as ICE, that list of students in the court order can be scanned and sent to our Director of Safety and Discipline, Jason Snyder. Mr. Snyder will then further vet those court orders through his federal agency contacts and state agency contacts. My conversation with the Department of Human Services, as well as that they've also been instructed to cooperate with federal and state law enforcement agencies as well. So we have a combined effort and we'll work together, but most importantly, do it in a way that protects the integrity and the safety of our students.
I have a question.
Sure.
So when the court order is verified, the student is removed from class. Do they have, before the interrogation or during the interrogation, do they have the right to representation? Or do they have the right to not speak until their parents are brought in?
It depends upon the situation. We need to make effort to notify parents, but they don't necessarily need to be there. And if we're instructed through a court order that the parents aren't to be there, then we need to follow order that we're given from the federal agency, state agency. Every effort, if it's appropriate to contact the parent, will be made. I know, in my experience, and even when I talk to kids at school, I often will ask if they're okay to talk to me by themselves or if they want somebody present with them. And of course, the principal or the principal's designee would remain present with that student for as long as possible unless they're directed otherwise by law enforcement or human services.
In this day and time with ICE coming, the ICE situation and all, for instance, if an ICE officer comes into the school, are they automatically allowed, if they want to remove that child, are they allowed to remove them without parent notification or?
Cody, do you have any feedback for that?
With the right court order, that could happen. But that's not really protocol how that would happen. I don't see them just showing up and saying, we're here to remove this person. And I can explain more about that later if you wish.
I do know they're just not gonna, if they come to the school with a court order, we have to follow that court order. If we didn't, we would, whatever it says. But if we question the validity of it, that can be further vetted. I know in situations when human services is at the school, if they're taking custody of children because of abuse and neglect situations, we're in communication with our prosecutor's office. We're developing a safety plan prior to the arrival of that agency at the school. It's well known in advance of time, so we can do it in a way that preserves the dignity and confidentiality of the student.
So in respect to a legal issue,
Yes.
why in the back of my head am I thinking that we weren't allowed to have a police officer speak to a student under the age of 14? Why is that number without a parent being present? Why is that age in my head?
So that would depend upon if they're being accused of committing a crime that they could potentially be charged with.
Okay, so we have three different situations here.
Yes.
The DHHR,
Yes.
a crime being committed,
Yes.
and an ICE situation. Okay.
Yes.
What kind of protections are for students in the parking lot, getting off or on buses? They're not in the building.
Yeah, so, I do know that we're responsible for children until they leave our premises. And again, if there is a court order, we have to follow that. If children are being removed without a court order, we would notify our prevention resource officer. We would notify Child Protective Services. I mean, there's steps that we would take to ensure their safety. But again, if there is a court order that says signed by a federal judge that they have been granted custody and given permission to remove these children from their premises, if we don't follow that court order, we would be obstructing and potentially face legal charges ourselves.
Do you know ahead of time in most cases if that's going to happen? Or do
So to be honest, with the situation going on now, I would like to say we would know, but I don't. We've not faced that situation in our county, and I'm hopeful that we won't face that situation in our county. But in the example I provided, if Department of Human Services comes in and is taking children, they have a court order that's signed, emergency custody that's signed by a judge giving them temporary emergency custody that they provide to us. And we have to follow that order.
Based on teachers I've talked to in other states, ICE is not announcing anything. They're just circling schools.
I do know in my conversation, I've had conversations with Lola Brown. I do know that there's Mountain State Justice is a law firm, specifically Matt Reagan, I believe. He's an immigration attorney fellow. There's something in the works with Family Engagement Day through Title III funding to provide information to our immigrant families about their rights as it relates to the school system. And that's something that they're working on. I think a tentative date is around February 20th, and that potentially is going to be offered virtually and in person as well.
I think that's a good
Yes.
part of the library.
Yes.
That was already kind of in the works.
Yes.
They were shoring that up.
Can you shed any light on any different situations?
I can if you,
Yeah.
there we go.
Yes.
So, as Mrs. Sarkey said, you know, a court order is a court order. Now, me and the other PROs will gladly stand and, you know, do anything for the kids and protect them at all costs. We're not gonna win against a court order. Now, with that being said, we do have a very good working relationship with federal agencies. I know kind of the persona is like that local and federals don't deal with each other. That's not the truth. We deal with each other a lot. I cannot, and I would never say this would never happen. I'm not saying that. I do not foresee them ever coming to the school without notifying us. I have always got notification first to say, hey, this is what's going on. So like ICE, there's obviously not a lot around here. I've been a police officer for 15 years. I think I've worked with them twice, and it was a phone call. You know, if they were to show up, they would see, hey, there's a police car sitting outside. Maybe we talk to this guy before we do anything. And of course, I would go through the chain and talk to Mr. Snyder, the sheriff, superintendent, whatever it would be. But to put your minds at ease a little bit, let me say this. I'm in a lot of contact with all the PRs all over the state. I'm one of the liaisons that kind of oversee the whole PRO program. So there's 10 of us all around the state, and we talk daily in a text thread. And we've talked about this, like, has anybody had this issue going on? And so far, nobody has. As far as the country goes, I'm a part of a few law enforcement things that I try to stay in the loop. And I can't say that, I know everything in the country, but what I'm reading and everything as far as schools go, they haven't had a lot of issues with that yet. I don't foresee that happening in West Virginia, that they just show up and come out outside my school and show me a badge and say, we're coming in. And I say, well, here's my keys, and I'll come for yourself. That's not going to happen. I'm going to make sure that, I have the right to be like, all right, time out. Let me review this order. Let me call my bosses and review things like that. I really don't see them just showing up to schools like that. And it's also, it's kind of the unwritten rule. Like, that's just not the way we're going to operate. Again, I can't speak for all agencies. Like for us, for example, if I was to serve a warrant on somebody that, maybe was affiliated with a school, or I knew they were going to be at this game Friday night, I wouldn't say, hey guys, let's go serve this warrant at the high school football game. I'm not going to put all those people in danger. But we as law enforcement are going to look to do a pickup or a warrant service where there's least amount, of people around. I would definitely not, that's not going to, I would call them out on it. Like, really, why are we doing this here? We got 500 other kids behind me that, the school that's their safe place. That is their, and that's the way I intend on keeping it. So I would never say never. I can't speak for everybody, but I just don't see them just showing up. I know a lot of the comments I've read and stuff, I think parents are in fear that ICE is just going to, or somebody's going to show up and we just let them in and say, all right, well, help yourself to the school. That's not going to happen. Obviously, we will respect the court order, handle it professionally, but it's just not going to be, help yourself. So it will be dealt with professionally.
So what happens in the interim when the agency shows up and, for instance, you were vetting the warrant the agency has? Does the child stay in class? Does the child get pulled from class? Does the child live in that holding area? What happens during that time?
I may get in trouble for this later and I'll eat it if so, but I personally, and speaking for me, I would make sure all this is legit taken care of before I say, hey, go get the substitute. So if I eat that later, it's on me. I'm gonna make sure everything is legit before I just say, well, go get so-and-so, they got a cut. I'm gonna handle that professionally.
I agree with Cody. That's how we would handle it.
All back there.
Yes.
Thanks. Mr. Snyder's phone may ring later. We'll do that.
Does anyone have any further questions? Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you both for coming.
All right, this takes us down to delegations. We have delegations. Delegations. Next, we have superintendent's updates. Superintendent Stover.
I have a few things. I would like to start out with a shout out at least. Thank you to Todd. He's been working through our cyber incident, working through that, and then with the finance office too. They met payroll. It took some hoops to get through that. We had some cooperating counties that allowed us to use their printers. So appreciate that. We always got to get payroll out and just a lot of cooperation there. I know it's not, ideal, but at least it was done and there was a lot of hard work behind that. So just a shout out to all those involved in that. And then we received some information from Dr. Beckett and Pierpont Aviation, and they have a wait list now for their programs. It's the first time in a long time, and I believe it is because it just takes time because of the outreach trips there showing the students what's available. So I want to just do a shout out to really not only Dr. Beckett, but our administrators and our schools that's taking advantage of, and our staff for getting the kids there so they can see all the opportunities in aviation in Harrison County. So just wanted to say that. I saw that today and I thought that's a positive for our kids in Harrison County. Also, I really want to say just publicly to all of we had a crazy beginning to January. I'm already in July because I'm looking ahead to January with the days off. And I know our parents have to make lots of different arrangements for that. We missed instruction, but it was just something. It's a West Virginia snow that we hadn't seen for a few years. So I appreciate just everybody being just working around all of that, our schools, trying to get back in the routine of missing so many days, and I think we're gonna be talking about those makeup days here shortly. And the maintenance department for getting things cleaned up and to get us back open. So I just wanted to say something, because it's just a huge thing. The snow just kept coming. So a shout out to French Creek Freddy, because he says we're having an early spring. The other one, not so much. So we're going to go with French Creek Freddy on that one. Want to thank, we just got out the information. You know, the year continues on regardless of what's going on. We're getting ready to register here in March for pre-K. We hope we have huge numbers coming in, and we have to add everywhere. So we just got that information out, so thanks to Christy Horn and Julie for getting that organized. It's always really organized every year. Our parents know what they need to do to get their kids in pre-K, and if you've got a 4-year-old out there and you're listening, please enroll them in Harrison County schools because we'd love to have them. For personnel, you want to give an update, Ms. Leesburg, on, you've had a lot of meetings here with the principals, and we're going into personnel season.
Yes, well, we finished up with all of Liberty moving into RCB. Tonight, we're going to be on the agenda, our consolidation of Middle and WI consolidating, so that will cheer that up. Also met with all administrators individually, with both Julie and Susie, Dan Knight, and also Susie Miller, to discuss their needs for next year. And so we'll be discussing that, and I know at the next board meeting that both Whitney County and I will be presenting not only personnel, but also budget projections for next year.
They give us a wish list for personnel, so we try to accommodate, but of course, we've got to look at everything in its entirety. So appreciate all that, because it takes time to have conversations to really understand what we need in our buildings, so I appreciate that. And then I think Mr. Lopez, you have facilities.
Yes, real quick. So Norwood School Sale is scheduled for the 10th, February the 10th. We had an open house yesterday. It went well. Of course, there's been some people that have looked at the facility leading into it, so it's gotten quite a bit of interest. And again, that sale will be final on the 10th. The price is moving up, but it will, depending on how many people are interested, those last waning minutes is when it will increase. Not important, the masonry has continued, and they're getting ready now to set the steel trusses, and that's a good sign. If they're able to get it under roof, it should go pretty quick. It's a few weeks behind due to some of the weather, but we don't anticipate it being a problem for the substantial completion date. Simpson, really, they've broken ground. The road is complete. They've done some of the utility modifications that they needed to do for to start getting deeper into the earth and laying foundation. So some of the surveys take place. So you're going to see a lot of movement on that project here in the next, hopefully the next meeting I'll be able to give you a better update. The secure entrances for Metro Middle and RCB, we have a meeting tomorrow morning to establish laydown areas and a timeline. Both principals will be involved in those meetings. Mr. Cole will be involved. Mr. Snyder's involved in that as well. So we hope that those projects will go smoothly. We told them there's, we need to get those. We talked to Lombardi. There's no wiggle room on substantial completion date on it. We intend for that to be completed in May. We need to get that completed so that we can move forward with a lot of the other things that need to take place over the summer. And of course, the Liberty Secure entrance is, we're still working on that. Hopefully we'll have a meeting with the updates that we're going to be going to the facility soon. And so that we can kind of plan out our summer as well with maintenance. I think that's all I really have unless there's any questions.
One question. Somebody contacted me last week about the day, end of last week, about our steam Facebook and water. I still going. Is there anything being done with that?
Well, we already have a contractor in place, and a contractor to do that. The winter, Mother Nature's, is really like happy. So there hasn't been a good window really since we had that contract for them to proceed. So there's talk that perhaps we're gonna wait until, summer after the season to do that. And that's kind of at the request of the Friends of Baseball. We wanted to get it completed, but chances are if we get out there and start digging, that earth may not grass over again and may not have seed. That's where we are.
Thank you, Mr. Buffett. That's all I have.
Thank you. All right, so there were two things that I wanted to bring up, maybe we could put on the next agenda as well. There was the discussion with John Feeney and Phil Riley in regards to the insurance program for the supplemental insurance program. If we could put that on there for future discussion and action, if we want to be a part of that, and do something along those lines. Second was, that's all right, I'll figure it out.
It'll come back.
It'll come back to me like halfway through the meeting. All right, this will bring us down to our consent items. Is there a motion to approve consent items as presented?
Make a motion to approve consent items.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? No discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. New business, bus driver promissory note. Is there a motion to approve payment to Cameron Chevron, substitute bus driver for reimbursement, $200 for one-time fees incurred for bus operator training, $1,300 as a program incentive for completing the required 52 hours of mandatory substitute bus operator training.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? I want to say one thing, this is a great program, and we do a lot of good with this program, and I think that you do a really good job with that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Men Personnel County Supplement. Is there a motion to approve paraprofessional service supplement that had been inadvertently left off supplement schedule when it started in the 2021-2022 school year in the amount of $4,900?
I so moved.
Is there a second? Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Semester exam options, out-of-state travel study request. Is there a motion to approve out-of-state travel study request as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? One out-of-state travel study request is Mr. Lockhart, South Harrison FFA. Just that.
Just in case.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Now we'll get to semester exam options. We had asked to put this on the agenda for discussion, to talk about possible alterations to the exam policy or possible discussion on what we want to do with the future exam policy. So we can open up for discussion now.
Well, I think everybody knows how I feel. As an educator, what I found most effective was that if students had 5 or less absences in a semester, they had to take one elective and one core class. But say, for example, in their other class, if they had 2 Bs and 1 A, they could voluntarily take the exam. If they got an A, that gave them an A overall instead of a B, which is extremely helpful going into the military, trade school, university, whatever. I also taught when it was worth 10%, and that is ineffective. It's, to be blunt, it's a joke. So I strongly feel, and based on the number of emails, I even talked to 2 people in Aldi's. They were discussing it, and I had a discussion with them. Many of the parents are not happy with it. And my heart ached for the RCB students. My goodness, 7 exams in 2 days. I didn't even have to do that when I was getting my doctorate. I mean, it's too much. But if we do the 1 core and 1 elective each semester, that gives them a good experience of how to do exams, gives them time to prepare. It's not extra burden on the teachers. And, teachers have record of their absences, the office has record of their absences. I don't see where this is a hard thing to do. And I think 25% is fair.
Any questions?
And I think what Jenny is talking about is what I presented last meeting, and it's the old exam policy that was in effect for the longest time. And it was fair. The 1 core and the 1 elective, each semester worked well, for those block classes. If you have 2 core, 2 elective, if you were in the year-long class, you take them both first semester and second semester so you can get more comprehensive. But again, it doesn't necessarily have to be an exam. It can be a comprehensive project. It can be something comprehensive in regards to an end of course project or
Research.
presentation or reason. It doesn't necessarily have to be an exam, depending on the instructor.
Well, that's what I was gonna say.
Plus, I think there's a little more meat in it. I think there can be a little more meat when it comes to be a comprehensive exam, when they don't have to have 7 of them, especially in third, where they're not actually studying for 7 exams at one time. Also, that frees up the teacher, okay, where they're not having to provide 25 kids times 7 classes, preparing for that many kids, giving that many exams, grading that many exams, in one semester. For that one grading period, lightens them up a little bit and, maybe they put a little more teeth into the actual exam.
And I don't see any reason why we can't do this policy for second semester already. I don't think we need to wait until next school year to change it.
One thing I would like to make sure is that if we do bring this policy back out and review it again, 2 things. I want to make sure that we first put it out for 30-day comment. I want to make sure that we get the comments. And the policy is developed from the main policy that Ms. Smith handed out last week, our last meeting. I'll make sure we get that done. And 2, I'd like to have it reviewed before we put it out for public comment by a group of individuals, to make sure that there's buy-in from all parts. So maybe we can have a review of teachers, of a couple of students, a couple of administrators, so that they can come together and make sure that what we're putting out for public comment is actually going to work and be acceptable.
Sounds good.
If, does the student have the choice of which core class and one
Yes.
elective?
I kind of think, not correct me if I'm wrong, but wouldn't it be better to have 3 core classes to get 3 main core classes as an exam?
Okay,
Is
well,
that too much?
okay, so the first year we switched to block scheduling and we had this exam schedule and teachers, you just have to admit the kids think faster than we do. So what they did was, it was based on you didn't have to take any exams second semester. So what they did, they took all their elective classes first semester, then they took all their harder course second semester, never had to take an exam on it. So you gotta be one step ahead of the kids. So that is why we do 1 core and 1 elective. And don't think electives are easy. Any student who took my Spanish classes will tell you it was not a cake course just because it was an elective.
I will vouch for
So.
that. Not trying to.
Or Mrs. Yater's sociology class.
Exactly.
Yes, that's right. Okay. So what we can do then is take the basis of the exam policy that was handed out the last meeting, put it together and maybe get the group of people together and have them review it and then put it on an agenda so that we can approve what's there and then we can put it out for 30 days.
You want a secondary
Secondary, yes, yes.
Secondary
Yeah, yeah.
educators.
Yes,
Should be able to happen next meeting, shouldn't it?
should be, we're good, yeah.
Yeah, we can put it on the next agenda.
Well, so in other words, we want to, or whoever, you want to do it for this second semester of this year?
I think
I just-
that's up for grabs.
I would think, I would prefer, myself, I would prefer that we start
Yes,
in the fall. Everybody knows right then, that now, a lot of kids right now feel like, I'm going to school every day. I mean, I'm going to be excused from my exams because I've worked hard and been there every day. Now, all of a sudden, you say, no, you're going to take an exam here and here. I just think that you give it time, once you work out all the kinks, then if you want to do it.
I have to agree with you, Doug.
Thank God. and him.
Wait, I'm writing down the date and time.
Yeah, write down that date.
If that's gonna be the case, can there be some form of reprieve or waiver for Bert, so that they don't have to have another 7 exams in 2 days again?
The other schools were only taking 4.
Is
That would have
something
to be,
that can be?
We could do
Yeah,
two a day.
But like I say, you can start working
This
on
is a
your ideas now.
guideline anyway.
the ideas we all
Exam.
have.
Yeah.
Okay.
the one thing that I did write down here that really isn't necessarily an exam, proposal or, comprehensive, review proposal is the grading portion of DDFF. And if we can just discuss that for a minute. I know right now, if we round up, in the high school, a lot of times 2 Ds and 2 Fs will round up to a D, but 0.5 rounds up to a D. However, when you're going and you're in class, you got, as Jenny said, you gotta be smarter than the kid. When you go DDF or DF, D or DDF, okay, the kid already knows they have a D. So they don't even have to do anything after that. So it was always, in the past, FFDD showing improvement, rounded up. But the DDFF, which did not show improvement, which showed, failure, and lack of coming to class or work in the classroom, or being productive in the classroom, then it should be not round up. So we have to actually state that. So that's why that was in here as a grading exception,
So A, B was a what?
is an A.
Okay.
When you say what if it's B, A, then it would be A.
No, didn't say that.
No, I'm just saying.
No, I wasn't saying that to you, I'm just saying D, D, F, F, and the O was an F.
Was an F.
So if B, or A, B, should be a B then. But no, we shouldn't be that way, it should be for all A, B, C, D. They all should have
The same,
yeah.
Point down.
Opportunity,
Well,
yeah. Without a doubt.
I can go with that too.
Well, I never had to worry about the A, B, and all that. I was usually on the lower end of the scale.
With the options,
I was like,
with the exam option though, the AAB, you have the option to take the exam or not take the exam, and should you take the exam and get the A, then you've already.
Yeah, that option is good, as DDF, same thing.
Yeah.
They should have that option, all of them should have that option, whether to take, to improve or not.
Yes,
But it would be good to have that option also, that if you took, AAB, and you didn't get the A, you ended up with a B, then that's not to count.
then you don't round up.
Yeah, it don't count. At least they made the effort to come in.
Yeah,
Add that
and
to
if
the
it's
list.
voluntary and they
For the
don't get
committee.
the second day, the grade stays the same. It's not gonna hurt them.
Yeah, right. I mean, I know that's what we used to.
that's why I
Good
think
point, Mr.
you
Tucker.
need to wait for the starting.
Yeah.
Next year, I just love this.
With the exception of health and ours and paper goes out.
if we're going to go that route.
I think that's good. All right. Any further discussion on the topic? Okay, brings us down to calendar update. We have calendar update to discuss for the conversion of snow days. And the Superintendent Steller had proposed a couple dates.
Sure.
We could possibly switch.
Well, you could either, we're looking at, it was President's Day, converting it to an instructional day, and Good Friday to an instructional day, and then taking one OS day at the end of the year. So we have 3 days we have to make up. Or just the 3 OS days at the end of the year. Those were the 2 options.
End of the year is usually a disaster.
That's my
It's what?
It's a
disaster.
Well,
Yeah.
I would say disaster. I wouldn't say disaster, but I would say.
Not as effective.
That would be my thought, would be, it wouldn't be as effective as you about converting a day here, a day there.
Yeah. And it's more continuity, especially for our AP classes or our skinnies that go all year. It's a little bit more consistent for them too.
Plus they're in class.
I think with the changes in the semesters too, it adds some days, not to the 19th. Yeah. So, pass it down. Those are really the only 2
Well,
options.
and for your
we have.
dual credit classes, they're over mid-May. So they wouldn't get the benefit at all on the high school level.
The only negative part about those 2 days, the only that I can see is that February, March, and April, that's a long haul there without any break. And that's when, well, it's been a few years ago, but that's when you had more discipline problems because students didn't have that break. And that's why I always say it would be nice instead of having a spring break, is to have each month a 4 day.
Well, yeah, the calendar committee, those days were put in to give a longer weekend to try to
Yeah.
break that up.
That's
And I
all.
But we
think-
got a late start.
Yeah, there were more days in the semester too, so there were, I don't know,
That's
probably
the only
equal.
negative. I see.
Yeah, so we had more days at the semester already. So
So
there's
Just
different ways
thinking
to
away
look
Good
at that.
Friday, for example, a lot of parents make plans that Good Friday that leads into Easter break, that they're going to, a vacation.
Well, the only thing Mr. Kirby said to me was that kids won't, because it's a Friday, you're probably gonna have low attendance. Adding that back in. Yeah. Then the other one's a Monday. Those will be days that kids probably will miss if they're gonna miss, probably not the ones that generally. So he's expecting low attendance on those days, since they were in the calendar and they expect them to be off. Families may have got some, but
Yeah, we've
it's
dealt with that
what,
before.
yeah.
what,
I think it makes it so much simpler to do the 3 days at the end of the year. They extend the calendar 3 days.
people plan their
we always talk
vacation
about
too,
more
Doug.
Input, why don't then we put it out to the people, to the faculties and to the parents and everything, both choices. And
Because,
let's see what.
because the day is coming up.
Yeah.
We need to.
Oh, yeah, the
The 17th is coming.
The faculty,
Then we better work fast.
the faculty that have reached out to me prefer to have them mixed in instead of at the end of the year.
Same here.
The ones that reached out to me would prefer to get it at the
Yeah,
end of the year, especially with us closing some schools, then that also gives them 3 more days to finish packing up everything that they got to pack up to get ready to be moved to their new positions. So, since we always want input, I think this is something that parents and all should have an input into it.
I can see the one day, but not the Good Friday, that's me.
Well, what about the 24th? What's going, I'm just asking, I know it's a faculty senate day, what, is it like
I don't
untouchable?
think we can.
I just asked.
No, you can't convert that.
You can't convert those? Okay.
Only the OS days,
Okay.
and there's only those 2 prior to the end of the year.
I think it's important that we make up the days while the kids are in school.
Yeah, I agree, it's better to do it throughout the year if we can. I mean, you might
While
have
the
that
kids
one
are in
day at the
school.
end regardless, but
So is there a consensus with this board on which way we want to proceed?
Yes.
and that would be converting the days.
While they're converting the
While they're in
days while they're in school.
And the 17th and 24th, or I'm sorry, and the 18th are days that. So
We have to notify the state what days we're doing it and change our calendar.
is there a possibility the state would
No,
deny the request? No.
no, they usually.
Well, like I say, I think it ought to be put out there to the people, parents, the faculty, let them, you got these three, this choice, whichever choice is majority, then we go with it. It would be those 3 days.
Do we have time to have that kind of process?
I think you could do a quick survey looking out to the faculty. I don't know about the parents. That would be the harder one.
I mean, some of the parents have already made vacation plans, travel league ball camp plans.
Is it possible to put a survey on the website for a week? And then
But the
gather the
17th
data?
comes before the next board meeting.
That's why I'm saying.
That's a quick one that we need to decide. If we're going to convert that one.
I'm in favor of
President's
putting the
Day.
17th back in play, converting the hours day period.
And then take a survey for the
Survey
other
for
2
Good
days.
Friday and the other 2 days.
That sounds good,
You
Okay,
do the 17th,
for sure.
the other two at the end,
Well, do a survey and see what they want to
do
do
the survey
for the other 2 days.
for the other 2 days.
I do want to say one thing. Everybody here in agreement with the survey, because we've had surveys in the past that have brought even bigger problems. So if we're going to do a survey, we're going to go with the final result, the majority of the survey.
And everything should go back to Mr. Oliverio, all
So
the
when it-
responses. Then,
Well, yeah, if he does a
Yeah,
survey,
he
might
sees
be able to
them.
have them.
and he can total up, come to the meeting, say, this is what I got back, and this is what they want to do.
All right,
So for sure, President's Day, we're converting. We'll
Yes.
get that out to families
yes,
now.
yes.
They haven't heard it tonight.
You're converting presidents.
Yes. And then the survey will be, do you want to add the other two at the end of the thing, or do you want to take Good Friday and split?
Well, I'm taking presidents.
And let's cross our fingers we don't have any more.
That's the American way.
All right. No old business. No policy updates. Personnel matters. Is there a motion to approve personnel matters as presented?
I must recuse myself because I have 2 people that are on the personnel agenda. My daughter and my niece.
Good work, Mrs. Leesburg. Do you have to type all that in yourself?
But they've been working on that. We've been,
Well, thank your workers.
yes, they've been doing a good job, yes. And the next meeting will be converting everyone to. Let's face it out.
You need some hand massages.
Flush, yes.
All right. Is there a motion? Is there a motion to approve the personnel agenda as presented? I don't have a motion yet.
I so moved.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on personnel?
yes, I'd like to, a little more detail on the career exploration job description. What is that and what certification, because it says valid West Virginia certificate in the area for which applying. I'm not real sure what that area is and for what grade level.
And is it multiple positions in different locations, or is it one singular position?
One single position, or what is it? Can
Those are
someone,
the positions that, for the middle school, for Liberty Middle, the careers course, careers teacher.
So it's an exploratory class.
It's an explorer. It's one of the 6 week related arts.
Which is very important.
Yeah.
we've never had that before?
Kevin used to have exploratories at Washington Irving.
Was it?
Yes.
No, I mean, not career exploratory specific.
Not
This
this
position.
particular one.
For a resource teacher, yes.
One position or a position?
Careers. Anybody can teach that class, it depends on how many people you need to teach that careers. So what CTE is expecting now is that a career exploration course touching on all 16 clusters on the middle school from grades 6 through 8.
So anybody can finish their license on this. Now, they have offered also an advanced credentialing program through the state. And already I've had 4 teachers at the middle schools sign up for that advanced credentialing because they realize they're going to need this to teach these career classes.
So will South Harrison get a career teacher?
They will be able to have, like, a lot of them already have people teaching the careers classes, so they're just going to be teaching them in a different manner. So,
How many people we hire?
we're not hiring any,
Not one?
Well, these are the positions that they selected between Mountain Middle and Washington Irving or Monroe Middle. And we're going to be transitioning all the resource teachers over to this whenever there's movement.
So there's no new hire.
No, we're just switching over from the resource teacher to a career.
Well, I worked for a principal one time that told me that I was going to teach a class. And I had no idea what he was talking, life experiences. I was the last person that should have thought.
All right.
Life experiences.
We got a lot of stories from you. So
Yes.
all right. Let's get back
So
on track.
it's,
Okay,
career-wise, good choice,
Yes, all right.
not life.
All right, we have a motion and we had it, so go ahead, yes.
I see there's 7 cooks. Is that comparable to other populations in the county as far as number of lives, what the numbers are going to be for student life? Or is that enough?
That should be more than enough, and we'll see if it's more or, how it works. But all of the staffing had the opportunity to move over. And so we wanted to make sure everybody had an opportunity for a position.
Plus, between now and the end of the year, you don't know how many retirements,
Right.
all that that you're gonna have.
There might be able, if one moves, that we might not need to fill, but I believe there's only one that's in question right now.
7%.
Yes. Yes, everybody had an opportunity.
Okay, call the question.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, this brings us to legal matters. The board.
I move pursuant to 69A412 of the West Virginia Code that the board go into executive session to discuss any legal matter which, by express provision of federal law or state statute or rule of court, is rendered confidential, or which is not considered a public record within the meaning of the Freedom of Information Act as set forth in Article 1, 29B11, Chapter 29B of this code.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Meeting All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, this brings us down to suspension of employee. Superintendent recommends a 3-day unpaid suspension for Tiffany Carpenter, Secretary at South Harrison Middle School. Is there a motion to accept the suspension?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, brings us down to board member comments. Mr. Tucker.
Just thank you for the folks that had to come this evening, make presentations. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Hogan.
No comments.
Dr. Santilli.
Yeah, just, thank you to Todd Poole and his crew and to Mrs. Starkey and her crew. And, it's nice to know our kids are in good hands.
Ms. Smith.
Good.
All right. I have no further comments. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Go
We are
in peace, go in peace.
Thank you.
Whitney, just